it is time to go into the biggest takeaways from the Pac-12 2023 football schedule release. I have been anxiously awaiting this for quite some time, and this is not the only time I'll be talking about it here on the show. And on that note, if you have a question, if you have a thought, anything you want to share on it, shoot me a message. YouTube comments, Twitter at smalls_55 or at LO_Pac-12. Shoot me a note, shoot me a question, ask me to break something down, explain something, whatever, with the schedule, whatever team you root for, by all means. Let's dive into this thing. Biggest takeaways here. The Pac-12 has done an exceptional job of making sure that the first full slate of conference games has some big-time matchups. You can't put them all there, but they put a number of them there. And that's what you want to have, because you want to start from a television product perspective. You'll want to start with a bang. And in week 4, the biggest game is a huge game. Huge. Conference championship ramifications in week 4, which sounds like an oxymoron. But when you consider that it's between two teams that are capable of getting there or have shown the propensity to get to the conference title game, you realize that a week 4 game between UCLA and Utah, wow, with Utah's non-conference and UCLA is at least being more respectable than last year, what if they're both there at 3-0? That could be a College GameDay side, 100%. It was a great game last year. It'll be in Salt Lake City this year, which is a fantastic environment. Utah's the 2-time defending conference champs. Chip Kelly and UCLA, I think they'll be a little bit of a pullback team in 2023, but I still expect them to be solid. They could still compete depending on what they can get from the quarterback position. But this is a really nice move by the Pac-12 to have that game in week 4. And there are a couple other good ones too. Oregon State at Washington State for their first conference game, tone-setting game for both of those programs that have shown glimpses of getting into the upper echelon of Pac-12 programs, but are still trying to make that jump. Tone-setting conference game to start the season. That game being played in Pullman, which has been a tough place to play for basically everybody. Oregon State, certainly no exception to that. Here's the other game in week 4. The first Pac-12 game for Deion Sanders. And again, this is just solid, smart scheduling from the Pac-12. The first Pac-12 opportunity that Deion Sanders is going to have is at Oregon. Most watched team in the conference over the last several years. That according to Sports Media Watch. It's Oregon, then it's USC. I think Washington or Stanford is next, then Washington. Like, those teams are up there. But at Autzen Stadium, Colorado, again, depending on what Colorado does in their non-conference slate, who knows? Who knows at this point in time? Colorado is Schrodinger's cat. You don't know what's in there till you open the box. You can theorize, you can make reasonable speculation and have an idea, but until the product takes the field, you just don't know. TCU was a 5-7 football team last year. People thought they'd be improved this year. Who had them going 13-1? Anyone? Bueller? Okay, that's about what I thought. You just don't know. Speaking of Utah, by the way, their first 5 games, Utah's schedule is it's so tough. I mean, it's just brutal. It is brutal. Here are their first 5 games. They host Florida, who they lost to a year ago. They're a better team than Florida, though. I think they'll be able to win that one at home. Then they go at Baylor. Then they play Weber State. Weber State, who last year housed a Utah State team out of the Mountain West that was just okay, finished the year 6-6. But as FCS opponents go, Weber State not a cupcake. One of the best teams at the FCS level this side of the Mississippi for quite some time. And then, that's their first 3 weeks. Those are their games. Then they play UCLA, which is at home. And then they play at Oregon State. You could have a very real scenario in which the two-time defending conference champions are 3-2 and still in it to win the league. But that is a gauntlet and a half to go through. Kyle Whittingham's team, not going to have any time to mess around and wait to play their best ball till later in the year. They got to bring it. They got to bring it there in the early going. I mean, that's just Florida at Baylor. Have to go to Waco, host Weber State, host UCLA, and then go at Oregon State. 4-1 there would be exceptional. If they go 5-0 in those games, that means Utah is probably going to make the playoff next year. I can't see them going 5-0 in that stretch. That is just really, really tough. Other notable games that everyone is going to be watching out for. Week 7, Oregon at Washington. We all remember how incredible of a football game that was this year at Autzen Stadium. Should be a similar sort of game up at Husky Stadium this year. Here's the interesting thing about that game. It's week 7. Both teams, because they have their byes mixed in there, could be 5-0. But one or both of them could very easily not be 5-0. That is 100% possible. The first 2 conference games for each, based on what we know about the teams right now, hard to see them slipping up. Oregon has Colorado at home, and they go at Stanford, and the Cardinal, I think, are going to have a tough year, and it'll be a slow rebuild under Troy Taylor. Washington has got Cal and Arizona, and they host Cal. They go at Arizona. So on paper, that's a combined 4-0 start in conference play. And again, going back to games that can ultimately decide who plays in the conference championship game, you got to circle that one. You got to circle that one. There are other games to circle in the schedule too. There are a number of other ones. I don't even know that I'll have time to get to all of them. I'm barely going to touch on the non-conference slate in this one, which is great. But we'll get to all that. But we got to get to Built Bars first because they are delicious, they are healthy, and you need to go get yours now. Built.com, Walmart, Sam's Club, all options. They're 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 17 grams of protein, covered in 100% real chocolate. They are chewy, they are delicious, they are filling. I've always got some in my cupboard. I've always got some in my golf bag because I never know when I'm going to need a quick bite. I use them for broadcasting as well. If I don't want to overeat, but I need to fill myself up, boom, Built Bar. Easy money. Again, Built.com, Walmart, Sam's Club. Go get your latest order of Built Bars today. So many things to get to here on a Friday. Gosh, the show is a lot of fun. Thank you so much for listening. Okay, so other notable games, and these are not all of them, right? I'm not getting to every major game here, just ones that really, really popped. Washington has a really, really difficult stretch. Week 7, they host Oregon. And then they have a couple more winnable games. And then their season, and I talked about them recently, that their expectation should be to get to the Pac-12 championship game. And if they don't, it's a disappointing season. Whether or not they achieve that goal or larger goals, that will be determined in weeks 10 through 12. They go at USC week 10. They host Utah week 11. By the way, game day contender, USC Washington week 10. You get both those teams at like one's 8-1 and one's 7-2 going into that game. I tell you what, that could be a game day game. Washington goes at USC, Utah week 11, and then they go at Oregon State week 12. The Beavs at Reser, which will be at full capacity, where they've been almost unbeatable the last couple seasons anyway. That is a brutal stretch. But if they get through it, if you go 3-1 in those 4 games, you're probably going to the Pac-12 championship game if you're Washington. You could do it at 2-2, but if you go 3-1 or 4-0, obviously, in those games, you set yourself up really well, because that means they're playing at a level where they won't stumble with a Cal or an Arizona, who could still be a nice team. Gave Washington a solid fight in Seattle this year. Arizona's schedule, very, very interesting, by the way. And going forward, I am, at different points in time on the show, going to break down each team's schedule and kind of what the challenges they present, the opportunities, the good, the bad, everything in between, all that sort of stuff. Tons to get to. Gosh, football is great. So another one, USC at Oregon, Week 11. Last time the Trojans will visit Eugene as a member of the Pac-12. Yeah, let me assure you that Duck fan is going to be a little hot and heated in that one, more so than usual. Week 12, battle for Los Angeles. Those are some of the biggest games that are in there. It's certainly not all of them. If you got other ones you want me to talk about, hey, what do you think about this? Again, shoot me a message. Happy to talk about it. Last thing I want to talk about for biggest takeaways on the schedule here, the non-conference schedule for the Pac-12, just like last year, is great. It represents a desire to build a college football playoff caliber resume by a number of programs. And that's what you want to see. I don't want to see them wimping out. I don't want to see them putting together a Michigan non-conference slate where they bail on UCLA and they play Hawaii, UConn, and I don't know, Middle Tennessee Technical Institute JV team, something like that, right? Like stuff drives me nuts. Scheduling is the biggest thing in college football that needs to be fixed on a national level. But the Pac-12, those schools, we're doing it right. We're doing it right. Colorado, oh my gosh, Colorado has 2 ridiculously compelling non-conference games. And if they win either one, Boulder is going to go into a frenzy, absolute frenzy. Colorado plays TCU on the road in week 1. Then they come back home and they play Nebraska. Colorado and Nebraska, storied programs that were great long ago and have fallen way down, a shell of their former selves, now with head coaches who have the potential to elevate them beyond what they've been able to achieve recently. Winning that game is so big for both of those programs. And remember, Nebraska has got Matt Rule, who's also in year 1. A lot of things need to be better at Nebraska. A lot of things need to change. And guess what? Matt Rule is a really good football coach. A really good couple of year 1 full rebuild / turnarounds. Oh, what a scene that'll be for the home opener. Nebraska. Gosh, that's fantastic. Oregon plays at Texas Tech. Sneaky hard game. Texas Tech, a nice football team. A really, really nice, solid football team. They have to go to Lubbock. That is not a gimme. That is not even close to a gimme. Arizona plays at Mississippi State this year. They hosted them this year. They gave them a good fight. They got through their non-conference play at 2-1. They'll have a chance to do that again, but they will go to Stark Vegas and take on the Bulldogs. Mike Leach, RIP, of course. And I tell you what, Arizona played them pretty solidly this year. If they're a better football team and Mike Leach isn't there, that could be, I don't know, a program-altering win for Arizona. Just saying, just throwing it out there. Arizona State, they host Oklahoma State in week 2. Do not have high hopes there. Well, okay, I'll close with the craziest one. I'll close with the just like most random non-conference game the Pac-12 has seen in a long, long time. Another conference note, I do expect UCLA to take a step back as a team this year. However, we talk about schedules a lot because they matter so much. UCLA, the pod scheduling system for the North and South teams still exists. UCLA misses Oregon and Washington this year. That's noteworthy. Makes it a lot easier to go 7-2, get to the conference title game. Just in league play, that is. I'm just saying. The 2 games with Notre Dame are there for Stanford and USC, who will meet in week 2 as usual. Washington State hosting Wisconsin. Holy smokes! Good for the Cougs, man. Good, a program that struggles to get onto the national stage, struggles to find relevance, struggles to get on teams' radar, they're going to have Wisconsin in Pullman. That's fantastic. And remember, they beat them in Madison last year. And if they beat them in Pullman, I'm telling you, I like Jake Dickert. I really, really do. Tough situation having to replace both coordinators, but I tell you what, they could, if they beat Wisconsin, they could start 3-0 again. They could. They could, but just good for the Cougs, being able to get that caliber of game. That's great for Pullman, which is a fantastic college town. Washington, in the non-conference, hosts Boise State to start, and then goes at Michigan State after they host Tulsa in week 2. They go at Michigan State in week 3. They housed them in Seattle this year. Washington will be favored in that game. I'm not questioning that. I just question if Michigan State is going to be as bad as they were in 2022. That is a question. And for Washington, that is the first game. I mean, you can't overlook Boise State, ever. We here in the Pac-12, we don't overlook Boise State. Teams have before. It doesn't usually go well. But I think Washington is much better than Boise State. I don't think the Broncos will be able to stop Washington. But that Michigan State game, in East Lansing, early in the year, fans will be rocking. Tough place to play. We'll see how that goes. Okay, the most random non-conference game of all time that I was reminded of when the schedule came out. How about week 2? The California Golden Bears hosting Auburn. They've got a home-and-home with Auburn. Auburn and Cal. Tell me, in your lifetime, as a sports fan in the college arena, have you ever put Auburn and Cal in the same sentence, either out loud or in your mind? This is probably the first time for you. It's the first time for me as well. What a massive opportunity for Justin Wilcox to buy himself some time. He's got the hottest coaching seat going into 2023. But if he beats Auburn, North Texas, and Idaho and starts 3-0, I tell you, that can buy you a lot of time in Berkeley. So much more to get to with the schedule. Those are just some of the biggest games. If I missed one, I apologize. There were a lot of games on there, but we got plenty of time to talk about them, and we will continue to do just that. Keep sending me your expansion team ideas as well. That series also going to continue on the show. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate all of you. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate everyone listening. See you next time, and have a wonderful rest of your day.